Hello, hello. It's Mondays at 11 a.m. So we're just about to start today's Mondays with Tara and Andre live. Today we're talking about how do we end 2022 with a bang. Can't wait to chat with you about this exciting topic. Hey, Andre.
Hey, Tara.
I feel like we're looking in a weird direction. We missed the books. How are you today?
I'm okay. We missed the books.
Oh, like elevating our thing. I feel like we're like looking down.
Oh, no, we're looking
hello.
down on people. That's not nice.
Well, we're not really.
No.
Welcome to Mondays with Tara and Andre. I feel like we're not centered today.
In so many ways.
That's so true. Yeah. So if you're new to joining us, we come here live every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We also post the replay in the group. So if you can't join us at 11 a.m., you can catch the replay. Monday. So can you
Labor
believe
Day Monday?
I know, Labor Day Monday for sure. Yeah. So can you believe it's actually September?
Goes fast.
I know. Honestly, I can't believe where the summer went. So
we're in the third quarter, right?
Third quarter.
Yeah, 22 has gone by in a blink of an eye.
In the blink of an eye. Mm-hmm. So wondering from people who are joining us if you had a great summer, what did you do that was exciting? And let us know in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, so for sure. So, I mean, I don't know where the summer went, but we're here in September and, the holidays are looming ahead. Mm-hmm. I know my friend and I were talking about Thanksgiving already, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm ready for Thanksgiving. So.
Well, we were even talking about going to, the new town in France, Cap d'Agde, next year, right? And that's going to take some planning. So, you got to look forward.
Yeah.
But it's a good time to also, I think in the third quarter, look back. So for me, September is always going back to school.
Yeah.
But did I look back to see where I was as I was starting the new year? And I did not. I never looked back. I was always,
looking forward.
Preoccupied. But I think it's good that sometimes you kind of look back and say, okay, where am I? What's going on? And look forward. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes people go, oh, I'll deal with it in January. But I think actually now is a good time because, you want to take stock of the year, see where you are, but also end the year on a high note and not go into Christmas holidays and stuff like that when you're doing family things, not in a good position in your relationship or having issues, that sort of thing. So, so speaking of high notes, super excited because there's just 1 week left before we start Open Relationships and Polyamory Mastery.
It's already, huh?
I know. Wow. So we're starting next week.
Yeah.
It's our 16-week program. We'll tell you a bit more at the end. But basically, we're going to be launching it pretty widely soon. So this is your last chance to get in while it's a small, intimate group environment. So, and we're going to be delivering all the content live and you'll get more of our attention. So it's a really good time to jump in. And we're also offering it at a super special price.
Yeah. But you always get our full attention.
Well, of course. Yeah. But with more people, you have to spread it out and that sort of thing. So the idea is that this is a great opportunity to jump in now. So,
but, it's interesting, right? Because the seeds we plant now will be what we yield in the future.
Yeah, for sure. So
it's good to do that. It's a good time of year for that reflection, I guess, in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So stay to the end and we'll give you the secret word to get today's cheat sheet.
Secret word?
The secret word.
Tell me. Nice. I like that word.
Because, we want to give you this cheat sheet to give you some ideas what we talked about today because you want to end 2022 with a bang and have that amazing relationship you want before Santa arrives.
Yeah, cool.
So let's start with a question.
All right.
So tell us, what would need to change in your relationships to end the year on a high note? So drop it in the chat.
Or what could happen to make it even better? If it's already on a high note?
Yeah.
How could it be better? Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's a good question. Yeah, where could we stand for some improvement? It's interesting, right? That idea of taking stock, right? Of looking at how we are and where are we, what's working really well, what's working okay, and where might we stand a little bit of improvement, right? It's kind of like as if we were running that business and, we're up and running, the lights are on, okay, we're solvent, we're okay, but are we able to improve the quality of our product? Can we expand our customer base? I think it's fun to look at it in those practical terms, but also it kind of sets it up for, am I going off rails? It sets it up for me, the idea that, we spoke about the idea of having our quarterly business meeting.
Yes.
And I think that's great because if we just let it go organically, that's wonderful. But if we have it already scheduled that we're going to take stock and have a little meeting of all the people on the board of directors there, we can not only acknowledge all the things that are going well, but if there's anything, it might be a great opportunity at that time to bring through, because we've already said we're going to talk about these things, we're going to review all these things, as opposed to just leaving it and then, well, when's a good time to bring it up? I don't want to rock the boat. It's a little bit difficult. There's something that's been on my mind. When can that happen? So I think having a scheduled meeting like this every so often really gives us both or all parties a chance to say, I like this, but I could imagine us also doing this, or maybe, modifying this somewhat.
Exactly. And you sort of jumped ahead, but you didn't jump ahead, because I think what we want to talk about closer to the end is the importance of relationship reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved how you said board of directors, because there actually is often, like in polyamory and open
mm-hmm.
relationships, there actually is a board of directors per se. There's lots more than just two people. There's other people to keep in mind. So we're definitely going to talk about that as we get to the end. But first, I think it's important to talk about the essentials. And the essentials, I think, are the things that, we want to include as part of our review.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidentally, the essentials are what is in our program. And that's why, we're talking about it today, because these are the key components we feel that make for
mm-hmm.
successful open and polyamorous relationships. So the first is communication.
Yeah. It always starts with communication, right? Communication. It's like people say, they might imagine often that being in an open relationship or in a polyamorous relationship is going to mean more and more sex. And often that is the case. But it's also very often about increased levels of communication,
mm-hmm.
more transparency, really announcing your position, checking with the other person. It's all about communication. Because if you have good communication skills, you're more likely to succeed. And if you do not have good communication skills, well, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
then you might inherit what's called miscommunications and misunderstandings.
Yeah,
not as good.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like assessing what your levels of communication are and working towards improving them.
Mm.
So the one thing we teach in our course is the attunement communication process, and it's an amazing way of resetting how you communicate. And since we learned sort of the process, we've sort of implemented it ourselves, and it's interesting to see. And I've worked with some clients as well. The same thing is that how you stop yourself and notice how poorly we're actually communicating and listening.
You're
gonna shut the door. Okay. Yeah. So are we communicating okay? What are we saying and what are we not saying? Are there things that I'm holding inside?
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about, as we, head into the new year, is there areas of our communication that we can improve?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's great that you say, what are we not saying? So again, going back to that business meeting model, if we already have the invitation to attend this meeting and we're going to talk about everything that
mm-hmm.
touches our business, then there is great opportunity to talk about the things that are more difficult to say, the things that we're not saying. This will be our opportunity to do so. And we will come to understand that it's a safe place to do that, right? That safe haven, that we're
mm-hmm.
able to say these things and know that we're okay. That it might not always be that we're agreeing on it, and sometimes it might be difficult, but it is freeing, liberating, empowering. So it's very good that we have that idea.
Yeah. And you set me up quite nicely for number 2, which is understanding our attachment style and how that might be impacting our relationship. And, finding ways of moving towards secure attachment. Because as you said, if we're not, part of attachment and having secure attachment is having that safe haven. So the safe haven is where, a space where you can go back and share
mm-hmm.
your concerns and get comfort and support and all that. And then the secure base, which is building strong relationship base so that you can go out and grow and explore and being an autonomous person.
Yeah, it's kind of like along the lines in psychology, what we would call object constancy. So you know that even if the object isn't there, you know that they still exist. You have it in your mind. But it's interesting, this idea of understanding our attachment styles. So for a long time, I was hesitant to be connected to people because, well, there are a whole bunch of reasons, right? But I did not have the awareness of it. And then when I gained the awareness of it, I could say, aha, so this is what's at play. This might be why I am acting in such a way, or I prevent other things from happening. So having that understanding then allows me to be flourishing in relationships, allows me to flourish in relationships. And it helps me to have a better understanding. And then I can understand why it is I do the things I do and what stops you from doing other things that I might want to do. Having an understanding about it, and it will really help facilitate healthier, more satisfying relationships.
Yeah. So what happens when your attachment is broken down?
Broken down as far as
you're not feeling that secure base and within your relationship. Like, how do people recognize it?
Well, I'll look at my own experience. My repetition of killing people off or doing things that have them kill me off would be at play. So because I was afraid to be attached, because I had anxious attachment style, I would prohibit any type of intimacy, real intimacy, and I would put it away because I was so afraid of losing that person, losing that object, that I would preemptively dismiss them or find a way to be dismissed. So we come to understand what is at play, and then how we might be able to affect another way of being, that we could find ways of tolerating these things. We get to understand it, and it makes it much more viable, less threatening. And then you come to have another experience, and I see, wow, like, this is survivable. In fact, not only is it survivable, it is far greater than I had allowed myself to experience previously.
Yeah, so people may be feeling anxiety within the relationship. They may feel like they want to detach in the relationship, and, creating, I'm just trying to, you might be creating stories in your head about what's going on,
drama,
the relationships with the partner. And when you have that, it can be really frustrating. It feels like you're constant, like you can feel it often in your body. When I felt that, and I think, just from talking to people, I know that that's an experience they have. So which is why it's important to understand your attachment style, and then, work towards secure attachment and establishing those things, which is why it's an important part of, our program we're doing. Oh, so speaking of our program, Drang is asking if Mondays will not happen while the course is on, and they will still happen. We might be shorter, but a lot of our attention will be on our program, but we'll still be delivering live content here as well. So,
but that's interesting, right? I mean, on a very superficial side note, about having things going on in your life, but then still inviting yourself to be present, right? And it reminds me of how we attune ourselves to the five senses. So if we are in a situation, let's say we're being intimate, wanting to be intimate, and my head's just not in it. I'm thinking about, the baby crying, the boss breathing down my neck, the dog barking, whatever it might be. If I'm tuned to those things, I'm not present. So we find ways of being present. And one of those very accessible ways is to identify your five senses in the now, and you can bring yourself back and be present again. So,
we've been doing that a lot lately.
We have been. But it's great to know that we can suspend these other things. They'll take care of themselves, or we'll take care of them later, and we can be present with it. So we will be present for Mondays.
For sure. I like how you made a point out of that. That's awesome. Okay, so the number
for a Monday morning, it's pretty good.
So the number 3 thing that the essentials to look at and deal with before the end of 2020 is any residual feelings or overwhelming feelings of jealousy and insecurity. Ooh,
it's big.
So this is a topic we've talked about a lot. And so I think, and we did do a live on understanding your jealousy and working through feelings of insecurity. But I think you don't want to end the year having those feelings, because I think what happens is that if we allow them to continue to build and grow, they create this life of their own.
They sure
I
do.
think.
And, or they'll kill off the other good part of your life.
Exactly. They can be all consuming, and also, take over all the pleasures in your life.
Yeah. And something like jealousy, it's so painful, it's so uncomfortable while it's unfolding that you might want to just turn from it and try and run from it. But it's almost like your shadow. As soon as you stop running, it's still there. So while it's uncomfortable, you might not say, well, thing I'd really like to do today is talk about my jealousy. But if you're willing to endure a little bit of discomfort and talking about that and explaining it, then you can walk through it and you come out the other side and you say, wow, like I've been able to right-size my jealousy. Not to say that you may never feel jealous again, but you'll feel as though you're much more prepared in a much better place how you will deal with these jealousies. And you might eventually reach a point where it's a non-issue.
Yeah. It's like, I think for me, when I started to understand what my jealousy was where it was coming from and the stories I was telling us, I was much more able, as you said, to deal with it and to understand, okay, and approach my jealousy with curiosity. Well, what is it I'm telling myself about this situation? I had some clients that were working through some things fairly new to open relating and kind of going through the process of, establishing the relationship, working through issues. And one of the things that one of the people was struggling with is insecurity and jealousy. And they described it as, having these pills that you swallowed and you just kept pushing them down and pushing them down and pushing them down and having this bloated feeling in your body because you couldn't get rid of it. And so one of the things we talked about is how can we see the pills, like the jealousy, the things that are causing jealousy, and dissolve them in our mouth and then ingest them, but work them through our body rather than just pushing them down and them staying there. So.
It's a great metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love when there's that visualization and you can imagine it and really see how it relates to it.
Well, it really helps person because of, just the way they go about in the world. Like some people are more visual people and it's like, oh, if I can visualize like dissolving this pill and processing it, then I can work through it. So
excellent.
So that was number 3.
And number 4 is establishing your relationship blueprint.
Yeah.
If you haven't already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think some people, when they start they open a relationship or decide to be polyamorous, they're newly with a new partner. One of the steps that skipped is actually talking about and establishing how your relationship is going to be. Like what structure do you want to start with? What are the components of it? How will you relate? How will you date other people? All those things. Well, that's number 6.
Yeah, we never spoke about that. And I think it would have really helped us a lot, saved us a lot of heartache and jealousies and feelings of discomfort had we had the language for it, had we had that kind of dialogue, had we made that blueprint. So I think it's wonderful to have that and go to it.
Yeah, and it's a great
resource.
And it's a great starting point, and it doesn't mean that's where you land. It's a blueprint, and as things get built, you can change it, but it's always good to have a place to start so that everybody is kind of on the same page and understanding, well, what model are we going to start with? Like for some people, they're more comfortable if they're opening a relationship to do things together. You know what I mean? And then they might move towards a situation where they are involving others. Like that's sort of how we started. Yeah.
Fun.
And it's been an evolution.
Yeah, it's forever changing.
Yeah, we're constantly
we're
constantly upgrading our blueprint. I think
so too.
We're adding, making additions.
Yeah, and also eliminating certain things. Right, we've discovered that some things are just not that interesting to us, and we're not really wanting it. So we minimize that or we eliminate it. Yeah, but it's good because we do it in agreement, right? We have a dialogue about it, and we might have a difference of opinions in it, and we'll agree to have that difference of opinion. But for the most part, it is collaborative. Right? We are talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's open.
Yeah. So once you have an idea of what your blueprint looks like, then the piece that supports that you would want to make sure you have in place before the end of 2022, oh my God, pandemic.
Goes fast.
Is establishing what we call a values-based relationship agreement, or VBA. VBA. Yeah, which is different than setting up rules and that sort of thing. So, part of what we teach in our program and to our clients is setting up a relationship agreement on how you want to basically run your relationships and the things that you'll have in place to support it. So, for example, instead of having rules, you might establish things that you agree to based on what you value in your relationship. And we've talked about this a bit before in the group. Like we talk about, one of them is consideration was one of our values. And then you define what you would say and do to meet that value in your relationship. So, for example, this is a very simple example, but for us, it's if we are going to be setting up a date with somebody else, that we give notice, let the other person know that it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not so much even asking permission, it's
No.
more as consideration, checking with the other person. Do we have anything scheduled, or let the person know I'm going to do this? Yeah, it's a good way of being. I like it. It's very easy, very accessible, very transparent.
Yeah,
it's very healthy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then the other part you might want to work on is how you're dating and meeting others.
Mm-hmm.
So, that might be related to your relationship agreement and your blueprint, but thinking about, where do you want to put yourself out there?
Mm-hmm.
Are you wanting to meet new people, and how to do that? And we did talk a bit about that as well in the group, but it's an essential part of, an open relationship is like, how are we going to do this whole dating thing and relationship thing?
And what's it going to be like when it actually, starts to hit the press and we start to get a response?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because there's sometimes like an ebb and flow, right? So I might get a lot of dates and you might have little going on, or I might have little going on. You're getting a lot of dates, and how will we feel? Or we both have a lot going on, and like, do we still make time for each other? What's going on? And you talk about it in the theoretical, but when it actually starts to unfold, how are you going to be feeling? And what if you are coming up with some feelings of discomfort? How will you address that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think the other piece of this and dating and meeting others and getting into action essentially is the disentanglement piece. Is how do we have some autonomy from the other? How do we become an individual again and not seeing, if you're opening up an existing long-term relationship, how do we be an individual again and have our own interests and not always be associated as a we?
Yeah.
Like remembering that you're a me and have interests and that sort of thing, which I think is part of the thing that helps when there's any sort of change in levels in terms of dating, and if one person is dating more than the other and that sort of thing, and having that piece actually helps a lot.
But what's interesting is talking about that idea of how we regain our autonomy, right? How we came into it as two individuals or three individuals into this relationship, and then it becomes almost automatic, right? You become a we, and it's wonderful in many ways. But then when you have that separation, are you feeling secure being separated? Because it could be new again, and having something like a safe haven or secure base will help facilitate that, right? It will help you to feel that you're okay in doing this. Yeah, so it's wonderful, and it'll help your partner as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from people that are watching either live or in the replay about if you've worked on this idea of disentanglement. I know it's a common thing if you're in groups. People always post that the most skipped step in polyamory is disentanglement, but it is a great point, and it is something to work on. So love to hear from you. Just drop it in the chat. So yeah.
I wonder if it's in the title, disentanglement. Disentanglement. I wonder if there's something in the title of that, the idea of that disentanglement, that makes it a little spooky at times, a little scary.
Oh, what would you call it instead?
I'm not quite sure. I'll have to give it some thought. But it's in the disentanglement. When I think of entanglement, it's like a knot. It's not a wonderful, pleasurable thing. It's not like regaining my autonomy, which frames it in a positive. It's as though we're tangled in this knot, and it's like, it sounds like it's an arduous task to disentangle that way, and it doesn't sound as inviting. I'm wondering if that's why maybe it is the most skipped step, because it doesn't sound as alluring or sexy as like, increasing your pleasure or things of that nature. I'll give it some thought.
Maybe like rediscovering me.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because I think that's part of it. I mean, I think because we started so early in our relationship, being open, we kept sort of our separate interests and things and that sort of thing. But I think if people are coming from a situation where they have been in a long-term relationship and it's not that case and they're opening up, there can be that, forgetting, like thinking that we do everything together and, trying to remember what you used to do, like when you were single or by yourself or just dating people. So.
But it's interesting. Yeah, you're right. We did start so early in our relationship that it was like this, and it's we haven't really known ourselves outside of that, known each other outside. But the pandemic,
yes,
changed all that, and now we went from being very open and polyish to having a model of monogamish.
Well, a lot of people did. I think.
For sure. But then you had that horrific flood in your place, and just through convenience, because I lived next door, you kind of moved in, and we started to take on that model of being a couple, of being a we, even though we're still both very cognizant of being poly, often our day-to-day, our milk and bread is in a mono model in a way.
Do you think so?
Physically, the demonstration of it.
Oh, physically, because
Right?
we're nesting more.
Because we're nesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it's something we still work on. We still find ways. Like you always find
for
ways
sure.
of going and playing hockey.
Oh, yeah.
I connect with friends.
Well, and even the dating aspect of it, we still find ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And because our homes are in such far distance now, we do tend to nest when we're there.
Yeah.
But even here in Montreal, I have a friend who lives in the city. And so we've decided in order to have some time alone that I would go and stay with her sometimes and you would go somewhere else. You know what I mean? So we're not always in each other's space, which I think is amazing.
It sure is amazing. And I think that's a very interesting point too, because we both acknowledge that it is important for us to have our own autonomy while being together. But at the same time, how do I introduce it? How do I say, you know what, I think it's good for us, or I think it's good for me that I have some time apart? So is there some preconceived idea that it's going to be in any way hurtful to you? Are you going to be seeing it as a rejection? Does that indicate where I'm coming from, that I would be afraid of rejection?
The fly.
Oh, there's one there too. We have screens on ours. I'm amazed that we have doors.
I know, and they keep flying around. So that's why I'm smiling.
And the bees and the wasps come in, and we had a moth, or was it a butterfly the other day? And it's beautiful. It's living with nature.
Yeah, but it's really, that's what we've been doing, and I think it's great. I think we just talked about it openly. Like I think one day we just kind of said, like, I think we were starting to get, like you had said we weren't communicating.
Oh, yeah.
You said we weren't communicating very well. And I love that you were able to say that. I think at the time I was like, what do you mean we're not communicating well? Like I had a really strong reaction, but then it was like, whoa, okay, that reaction is a really good indication. And then I started to feel like
it really resonated with you, right? There was something about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think we're starting to recognize that and trying to figure it out. And I love that, we're able to talk about those things.
We talk about everything.
Yeah. It's the communication piece, really. I mean, can we say it again? I would love to hear from people if they feel that, they communicate well in their relationships. Like, I think I'm just curious if you would give yourself a rating, what would you say? How would you rate yourself?
Well, I'd have to compare it perhaps with other people's announcement of their relationships, but I would also draw on my own past experience, and I would say by far this is the best communication relationship I've ever been in.
Oh.
Yeah, we speak openly and honestly. And I remember not too long ago, maybe a month ago or so, we were having an issue that came up, and you saw it one way and were very passionate about it, and I saw it completely other way and very passionate about it. And I knew that we were not going to have an agreement that day.
Yeah.
But I also knew, without a doubt, that we could agree in a very civil and secure way that we were going to disagree, but that we would be able to talk about it. And we might not come to an agreement about it, but we'll certainly be able to talk about it in a very loving and civil and secure way, that we wouldn't ever personalize it or make it unsafe to announce our position. That's a wonderful thing, because sometimes I think I might have in the past been engaged in certain conversations that got a little bit too heated and didn't know how to kind of, decipher and make it that it was viable.
And I think that's the piece that people struggle with, is that they feel like, oh, we're not communicating well, and then they disagree on things and don't know how to come back from that. Because I think, and that's part of the thing that we teach, is that you can disagree, but be heard. And I think that's the important piece, is like, if I feel heard, it matters less that we disagree on the thing. It's being able to share how I feel about something and knowing that I've been heard. And then I think when you do hear the other person, you hear each other, there's more opportunity then to come to a, some sort of resolution that perhaps meets, both of your needs in some way. So, yeah.
A question in the group here. Can't you nest with more than just one person?
Yes.
For example, 3 or more nesting, living together. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact,
lots of people do.
We did that when we first moved in here. There were the 3 of us living here. And, I thought it was wonderful. I don't think the 2 of you thought it was as wonderful, but it definitely was part of my fantasy. But I think it'd be wonderful to have a house with multiple people like that. And if there are issues of jealousy that have been resolved, if there's less jealousy and more security, I think it could be a wonderful thing. there's so much opportunity for more love, more intimacy, more expression, more security. I mean, it just feels like it could be a very full and rich way to be together. Yeah, I think it'd be wonderful.
Maybe
with the right people.
Well, I think for me, just I miss some of my alone time. That would be the only thing for me personally. But it's knowing that whether or not that model would work for you, because some people it wouldn't. Like, well, I don't think I could live with 3 or more people all the time. Like, I need my quiet space.
Okay, so what if you had your own area that was your area?
Yeah.
And a common area where everybody comes together.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Well, if we're building the spaceship and we're inviting people, I'll find out if you're interested, and maybe you come with us.
As long as I have my own separate section of the spaceship.
For sure.
But that's what you could discuss, right? What would work if you had 3 people, just when we're here.
Or 3 or more.
3 or more.
But yeah, you say, you know what? I'm pretty much on board with this, but these are some of the provisions that I'd have to have in order for myself to feel secure or wanting to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take it to the group and they're like, yeah, we can do that. Or, nah, that's not it. And then we decide, well, that's not it.
Yeah.
But we would only find out if we were to talk about it.
Yeah, Drang says, what if everyone had their own bedroom? I think that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. And then a common bedroom.
The sex room.
Yeah.
The playroom.
A living room that's just wall-to-wall matches.
It's so funny. When I was in college, I went back to school for art. One of my friends that I met was talking about, building a house, and he was saying there would definitely be a room that was just for sex. And at the time I thought, oh, that's interesting. I can't even imagine that. But now I'm like, of course, that would be amazing.
Need to work with like a sex positive architect or interior designer, somebody who knows, so this is where the dungeon is, this is where the playroom is, these are your Jerusalem. Yeah.
Well, there is that TV show, but I'm not How to Build a Sex Room or whatever, but I don't think she's like the person that's the designer is really knowledgeable about those things.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched it yet though, so maybe I should hold judgment. Mm-hmm. Okay, number 7 thing to check out and to think about to end 2022 with a bang is the banging part. Mm-hmm. How we can increase desire, intimacy, and sex in our relationships. Yeah.
Is it possible to increase those things?
Yes.
Are they really?
Yeah.
What's a quick example of how you might do that?
Well,
I thought of one.
Okay, go.
Well, okay, again, it goes back to, we've got a whole bunch of things to do in the day, and we'd like to be intimate with each other, but, I've got to feed the baby, I've got to answer the phones, whatever. But later on tonight, when I'm nice and tired, we'll try and go at it. And then I'm just too tired at the end of the day, you're too tired too. I still want to be with you, you still want to be with me, but we're just zapped. Whereas we might be able to say, let me prioritize myself, let me prioritize this thing, and find time either in the morning or during the afternoon or whenever it is, where we will prioritize ourselves, we'll pay ourselves first. So we will go to it. And it's interesting because, sometimes we're not really feeling it, right? It's so automatic. And we say, well, we'll take the action and the desire will follow. Mm. So maybe I'm not so inspired at that moment. It's going to feel almost like this thing I have to fulfill that's scheduled in the books. But once I kind of get into it and I bring myself back to the present, voila, I am now there. And maybe it's not a marathon session. Maybe it's just like a reasonable amount of time. But it really does create this feeling of intimacy and sexual expression that I might not have had otherwise if I just waited for it to happen. So I'm proactive in that sense. And it does really influence the amount and level of sex and relationships we're having.
I put this up because I love this diagram of responsive desire, where you start from sexual neutrality, and then there's some sort of stimuli, arousal, and then your desire and arousal increases. There's emotional and physical satisfaction, and then you get the emotional intimacy. And I think for people out there is understanding when it is you feel the most open to receive and give, have intimacy, you know? And for me, it is not at night.
Right. Sometimes at night.
Sometimes.
But if you have to get up in the morning and all things, it might not be the ideal place. But find out what your frequency is and when would be best for you. And then if it's not convenient, make it happen. Sometimes you got to be proactive with it and take to the person and say, hey, we need to have some time together. And maybe it's not just sexual. Maybe it's simply stopping as you're walking in the street and check in with each other, right?
We do that all the time.
We do.
So what might increase your desire and intimacy in your relationship? And I think that's sort of building that connection again, which is why it's one of the things we talk about again. It's one of the modules in our program, the fun one. It's near the end. You have to get near the end and get to get this part.
It's the reward.
Well, it's all a reward. I think everything, I mean, working
Talking
with
about jealousy might not feel like a reward, but when it sets you free, when it helps diminish your feelings of discomfort, that's a great reward.
Yeah. And I think another way to increase desire and in your relationship is to explore some of your own, where your desire is and how you might increase that. So for example, I think I've talked about this before, but anyone who's watching, I've started to explore some of my inner areas with the cervix wand, which I'm a huge fan of, and I will drop a link in this broadcast so you can get it. But having some time to myself to explore different areas of myself that I'm not, I haven't experienced before.
I'm all for you exploring your thing, but I love when you invite me to explore with you or when you show me what you discovered. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we've been doing we've been doing some of this exploration with this tool together as well.
Tool or toy?
I call it a tool.
I think of it as a toy.
I think of it as a tool because part of this it's like this beautiful glass piece, and it has two different ends, and you can explore different parts of inside your parts of your vulva and see where there's tension and release tension, where there's pleasure and that sort of thing. So it's a bit of a practice, which I haven't done in a while. And I think the other thing is just generally trying new things or exploring new things, together with partners, you know what I mean? And just being open to let's try something new. Yeah. And I think that's awesome. So that's another thing you could do to increase, to have end 2022 with a bang, is take a look at your sexuality, your intimate relationships.
Yeah, for sure. Good.
Yeah. And finally, the thing that we talked about at the beginning is setting up regular reviews for all of these things.
Right.
So, I want to ask in the chat, let's have a poll here.
Oh, yeah, I like polls.
Do you do regular relationship reviews or check-ins? So drop a 1 for yes or yes, 2 for no, and 3 for I wish or right I wish.
I've never done those check-ins prior to this relationship. It was just
neither.
We'll just fly by the seat of our pants, I guess, and we'll do that. But I think it's really good for us to be able to do that. Yeah. Yeah. And it's an opportunity to talk about the things that are difficult to talk about. This is your time. We've already scheduled this time together. We're already going to have this meeting. There's going to be, we're going to take the inventory. We're going to take stock of it. So I think that's great.
Oh, we have some 3s and 1s. So 3 for I wish and for yes. Awesome. Oh, saying that Debbie liked the wand. Awesome. I'm so happy. Not consistently.
I don't know that we do it consistently either. It's not on a weekly or daily thing, but we do try to have one business meeting a quarter. So September, it's the start of the new quarter. We will have our meeting and find out what's going on. Yeah. Check in.
It's also the 5-year anniversary of our very first date is coming up.
Really?
Do you remember the date? Don't look at the notes.
September 30th. But wait a second. So that's, we were not yet announced to each other that we were
open or
weird,
anything.
Kinky, queer, whatever.
No, we just met for the first coffee.
So is that an anniversary date?
I mean, I don't know what other.
Well, when we made the announcement that we might be.
I don't know that date though. It was like a month. It was the day before you left for your trip with Arzu.
September 30th.
I think September 30th is the perfect time to review.
I'm wondering what it is about marking anniversaries.
I don't know. It's just an extra point in time to celebrate. I don't think you have to do anything in particular. I don't feel like, but it's kind of a nice.
To acknowledge that?
Well, it's kind of nice to do this kind of review. It is September and it is the start of the last quarter of the year, so it's the perfect time for it. So
interesting though that it'd be a 5-year mark, because often people talk about their 5-year plans. I wonder going forward if we look at 5 years and going back to my attachment style. I'd never been in a relationship more than I think 2 or 3 years. And if I was that long, it's because I was avoiding having to
end it.
Having to end it. So to think of myself of having been in a 5-year relationship is new, but then to allow myself the idea that I might remain for another 5 years is new. But it's because I feel safe and secure. And also because I feel that the things that I want are accessible. The love and the support and the security and the exploration and opportunities, all those things are still present. So it
does feel like some of those things are accessible. But I think you raised a good point, is what about if your part of your quarterly review is if we should actually continue on, stay together? Because sometimes, that is the decision that has to be made and gets put off.
Right. And then how will you separate? How will you, we'll call it divorce, how will you kill the other person off?
So kill them off.
Oh, you don't like that term. Okay. So how will we separate? Can we separate with love and just acknowledge that we had this time in the sun, and then, part as friends, wish the other person well? Like, how will that go? I don't think we're well versed, and I'll say it for myself, not well versed in how do we close that chapter? How do we announce that maybe it's not the same path we're going on?
Yeah, I mean, part of what the relationship review can be is reviewing the various things that all the 7 things that we talked about, and deciding if there is room to change, move, those sorts of things, what needs to change in order for you to stay in the relationship. That's the other part. And I think the thing that you have to remember, and I was talking to a friend about this who's looking at breaking off a relationship, is, looking at it as if you keep going, you're actually giving the person more pain.
True. Their investment,
their investment continues to, and so looking at it as a way of gifting them time and, and.
But, it's interesting, the idea of the communication and talking about those things that are difficult to talk about. And looking back at my relationship, I think there were a couple of relationships that I had that were probably viable had we had those open discussions. I could have said to them, this is what I like and this is what I'm liking less. And they could have told me as well. And had I been open to those forms of communication, it might have really changed the quality of our relationship, and might still be with it.
Maybe. I'm glad you aren't, for my own sake. Okay, so what makes a good relationship check-in? So happens on a regular basis. So you decide the frequency. So doesn't mean you're not going to have informal conversations all the time, but it's nice to say, okay, we're going to do this quarterly, and these are things.
So it's already tabled for you, right? So you've already allocated that time. So all parties have been invited, and you're going to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And then we can establish that safe space for talking about uncomfortable topics. So we might even say, well, we'll meet in a neutral location like the diner, or we might also say, let's not do it at 11 o'clock at night. Let's do it during the day when we're feeling better. We might say we'll do it outside in a neutral place, but we might also say we're not going to talk about this for 2 hours. We're going to talk about this for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and we might not come to resolution, but we'll have at least tabled it and we can start thinking about it and talking about it. Because what happens is if we leave it open-ended and it goes on and on and on and on, it might be difficult to close that or to put it in a container if it's not fully resolved immediately, right? So it's good to have that frame, and it helps us to feel more secure knowing that, okay, we're going to go at this, see how it goes, and we'll find out what comes up.
Yeah, so part of that frame might be deciding on what the agenda is. Like, what are the things you want to talk about? And it could be the exact things that we talked about, those 7 things. How are we communicating? What's our intimacy like? How are we doing in terms of attachment, jealousy, all those things? There could be, all kinds of things that you want to talk about. And then more like there might be some more practical things about your relationship, how you're living, that sort of thing. Are you leaving the lights on? That sort of thing. Etc. So people often say, well, why do you need to do a check-in if you're constantly communicating? And I think the point of this is, and maybe some of you experience this, especially if you're struggling with a particular thing in your relationship, in opening up or being polyamorous or just being in a relationship in general, is that you can get into a situation where it feels like you're talking about your relationship all the time and it fills the room. So having a time and space to do these reviews, or if there's particular things that you're working through that you need to deal with sooner rather than later, then also scheduling time to do that and setting aside time and being there and like doing all the things that we teach people to create a safe space for people to share and be heard. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. So, that was a lot of things.
It is a lot of things. Those are a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always so much to say.
Yeah. So that's like how you end 2022 with a bang. Those are those 8 things that we do in our program, which is what I want to, share a little bit about that because it's pretty exciting. We're going to be starting next week. It's going to be a small, intimate group. I mean, we're still going to come live here, but the information you get here is a little different. We share information on topics and what you need to do, but in the program itself, you're going to work through all these things with us, which is super exciting. So we talk about all the things we talked about today: communication, attachment, jealousy, setting up your relationship blueprint, setting up your agreements, and, finding ways of increasing desire and that in your relationship. So if you do want to join us, so how it's different than this is, here's a little bit about it. So it's a 16-week immersive program in a small group setting, which is pretty awesome. We're going to limit it to 10 couples or partnerships. The course is delivered live bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks, we'll come live on a topic. We'll teach you one of the modules. And then in between those times, we'll have a group coaching call where we can walk through what's going on, or you can bring up that says weekly. It's bi-weekly. We're alternating training and coaching calls. So you can ask us questions about what we did. There'll also be particular exercises that you'll do in between those times that you can work through all the concepts. We'll have a special private Facebook group just for people in the program. So you can, all the content will be there, all the videos, all the exercises, and you can also ask questions and talk to others in the program 24/7. We have an awesome membership site, which also includes all the trainings, but also some bonus trainings. So we're going to do probably some trainings, that thing. And finally, there's going to be 2 private sessions with us at key milestones in the journey.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we're going to start with an introductory one. We give everybody some exercises to do. Then we meet one-on-one and with them first to get them started and understand your goals and what you want to get out of it. Because what we want out of it is for you guys to end the year essentially with a bang, and so start 2023
on a high note.
With your relationship in an awesome thing.
Yeah.
So
the secret word for the day, the secret word is?
It's bang. So we'll give you a cheat sheet with the list of things that we talked about today, some other links. And if you want to talk to us about what's going on in your relationship, we'll ensure that we give you an action plan to get things going. If you want to learn more about Polyamory Mastery, there's the website there, and we'll drop it here. You can type Mastery in the chat here, and we will send you the link.
Cool.
Super exciting. So join us. There's only a small number of spots, and we're super excited. Let's get this ball going. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for being an awesome co-host today, Andre.
Thank you. I want to address my own little gorilla in the room. I've got a cold sore. I've got a fever blister, as they used to call it, and it is because the stress that I'm feeling. I'm going through something pretty big in my life right now on a personal level. And the reason why I bring this up is because I felt uncomfortable about it, but also because it is important. This is my public service announcement.
Oh, yes.
Whether it's this or anything else that's going on with you, I hit the stop button. So I've been wanting to kiss you. I've not been kissing you. I'm not wanting to spend
I
you.
know.
So,
it's so hard, especially now.
Sure.
So lots of long hugs.
Lots of long hugs. There's still ways of being expressive in that. But it is my responsibility to not go around transmitting this, right? It's unfortunate. Most people have it. It's not a big deal, but it is symbolic of something else that could be happening or not happening. But if ever we should come across something like this, we need to be proactive and responsible members of our community, because it is a community of love, right? So I need to be a good steward. I need to be a good fellow in this. And by talking about this, by showing up like this, I'm hoping that it helps normalize things and being just that's how it is, right? So same thing with any STI. If you should happen to have something, then again, find ways of addressing it, treating it, but also in your family, your polycules, whatever it is, the people you interact with, be responsible to do the right thing as they will for you as well. And because trust and responsibility is some of the keystones of our relationship.
Yeah, and that's part of our relationship agreement. One thing we value is our sexual health, and that's about getting tested regularly and letting other people know things. Yeah. And I think it's so interesting about the cold sore and like how the body tells us when something is going on. And I think when people are having issues in their relationship and you can feel it in your body and you can't deny that feeling. And so we want you to feel better about it. So keep joining us Mondays, and yeah, we'd love to have you in the program. Let's get you out of that pain.
Okay.
So thanks for joining us today.
Thank
Thank you. And reach out at any time to let us know. You can DM us through Facebook, or, I'll drop some of the links in the chat here. And, have a great rest of your Labor Day if you're celebrating. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.